Why is it that someone who does tshuva on Rosh Hashanah, I guess, and follows all the mitzvahs, and he prays to Hashem to write him in the book of life, and yet he is inscribed in the book of death, not of life? You know, the prayer that seems to be the most dramatic on Rosh Hashanah and Kippur, where we say, today, on this day, God decides who lives and who dies, who by fire and who by water, so on, etc., all the details. Some people take that to be a very threatening, sobering statement. Be careful, because you could get a very bad decree. That's not a good way to think of it. What it's actually saying is the opposite. You're worried about what's going to happen next year? How could you? Who decides who dies and who lives? Who? Someone. Your neighbor. God decides. And not just in some general way, live or die. Every detail. Who dies, who lives? And among those who die, how do they die? By water or by fire? And those who live, will they live successfully or barely? Will they live richly or poorly? All of this is decided by God. So what are you worried about? Relax. You're in good hands. It's really a very comforting thought. So what do we mean, or what does it mean, when you ask to be written in the book of life and you don't live out the year? Obviously, when we ask, we're asking to be written in the book of life, meaning physical life, actual life. But if it's not destined, if we have lived our life, then what are we asking for? Let's go to the extreme. Suppose you're 106 years old. You've pretty much lived a life. And it's Rosh Hashanah. And you're asking God to inscribe you in the book of life. And he doesn't. Are you upset? How could he? What do you want to do? Live forever? So no one should ever die if you daven on Rosh Hashanah? The Rebbe writes that a Hasidic interpretation of Moda Ani. Moda Ani means, I am grateful that God gave me another day of life. That's the simple meaning. The Hasidic meaning is, I'm grateful that God gave me a meaningful day of life. Because a day of life without meaning is no blessing at all. If you're wise. So a wise person doesn't pray for long life. A wise person prays for meaningful life, long on meaning, even if it's short on time. So we're not asking God to keep us alive even if our shlichus is already done, even if our mission on earth is finished. We don't want to just hang around just to be here another year. So ultimately, of course, God decides when our mission is done and where our presence is more relevant, in a body on earth or back in heaven. Either way, we want it to be written in his book. We don't want it to happen without our participation, awareness, thoughtfulness. So if God gives us life on earth, we want it to be life that we asked for. If God takes us back to the world of souls, we want that to be thoughtful and meaningful. There's another thing that needs to be answered here. We ask God to inscribe us in a year of life on Rosh Hashanah. But isn't the length of our life already determined at birth? So it's not like God determines at birth how long you're going to live, and then every Rosh Hashanah you get to extend it for another year. That's not the way it works. A person lives the amount of years that were given at birth. So what if those years are up? Well, Rosh Hashanah is not going to change that. It's only going to make it more meaningful. Knowing that God decides, makes all the decisions, and wanting God to be in charge of my life. That's what Rosh Hashanah is.